Hey everyone, welcome to a video on price floors. Definition: price floors are a government imposed minimum price for which a good or service can be sold. So therefore it's the opposite to a price ceiling, which is a maximum price. So we transition, we'll draw a diagram. So we'll start like this. Now if it's a minimum price, what that means is that it cannot go below that amount. So for this to have any meaning, right, it's got to be above the equilibrium price. So here would be a price floor above the equilibrium. Think of this Star Trek guy as the pricing. He's banging through the floor. He's trying to get through the floor. The price mechanism wants to take us to equilibrium, but it cannot. So obviously when a government puts in a price floor, price will rise and the quantity will fall. So in general, we'll look at this a bit more, but quantity supplied, that's not being bought. So all that will effectively be produced is QD. So quantity will fall from the equilibrium to QD. Okay. We're going to look at the most common market where we see price floors, and this is the market for low skilled labor. This is the minimum wage. Right? Now, minimum wage market is a little bit different. So suppliers are the workers. The workers are the ones who are supplying their labor. The businesses are the ones who are demanding labor. They're buying the labor. So it's a little bit different. So we'll just keep that in mind. So let's look at what happens in this market. Let's say the equilibrium price where there's no shortage, and there's no surplus is $5. $5 wage for low skilled workers. Now, the government is intervening here because they see that as a bit of a problem. Society really sees that as a bit of a problem. They think that is not enough for these people to live on. So in a country like Australia, we have a minimum wage. And right now, as of recording in 2024, that is $23.23 per hour. So much higher than $5. So that's great for the people who have jobs, right? People who have jobs, they get paid more. That's excellent. But look at the quantity. Businesses aren't going to be as willing and able to pay $23.23 an hour as they were for paying, say, $5 an hour. So what we get is a lesser quantity of workers, and what that really means is unemployment. So consumer surplus of businesses is smaller. So consumer surplus, remember the businesses are the consumers here. That's smaller because they were willing, for some people, they're willing to pay a lot higher, but they have to pay $23.23, so they lose a lot of their consumer surplus, right? That's going to happen. Producer surplus for the workers, those who keep their job, going great. They get paid $23.23 an hour, but there are those who may not have a job anymore, and that's always the argument against minimum wages, is that it can cause unemployment. There is a bit of conjecture about that in the economic literature. We'll talk a bit about that in class. So a consequence is we get unemployment. We're also going to get higher costs for businesses, because remember, labor is quite a big cost for a lot of businesses, right? So we'll see that on the next slide. And we're going to get welfare loss. So look, consumer and producer surplus, the social surplus is maximized here. Here it is not. So therefore that is a deadweight loss to society. Okay, here's how the higher prices, the higher costs of production for firms lead to higher prices. So we've seen this before. This is basic microeconomics. Increase in the cost of production, shift supply to the left, we get the shortage, and that raises the price, right? So market for fast food, for example, the argument is always, well, how much do you want to pay for your Macca's burger? If you have a really high minimum wage, you're going to be paying more for your burgers. So that's always the argument. It's a fair argument. Now, here is a different situation. So sometimes the government puts in place a price floor on a commodity. So it might be, say, wheat, right? They want to ensure that the farmers get enough money so that they keep on producing. So the government will buy any surplus. They'll put in a price floor and they'll buy any surplus that results. Once they buy it, they've got a few options. They can dump it abroad, which isn't very nice. So they can essentially give it away for free or at a really low price. What that does is actually destroys other countries' farming markets. So their farmers will stop producing because they're getting this stuff for free. Why would you buy it from someone? Another option is to store it for future. That's very expensive to do. And another option is to destroy it, which is of course very wasteful. But for the governments, they want these firms to keep producing. They want these farmers to keep producing. So we'll look at what happens in this market, get a price floor. Now, consumer surplus is small. We saw that on the previous slide, or a couple of slides ago, so we know what that's all about. But here, producer surplus is now a lot bigger because they are getting the higher price and they're also getting the greater quantity as well. So they're producing as much as they would want to at that higher price, and the government's going to buy the surplus. So producers are very well off. Look at that producer surplus. It is huge. Now, what does this mean? We'll go to the next slide. So we've got this, right? The government now buys QD to Q floor, right? So only the market is only buying QD, right? So all of this is going to be bought by the government. So that's why we get producer surplus expanding. So we see that this triangle here is social surplus that is gained, right? So in a free market, that would be consumer surplus and producer surplus down there. Now we've got this extra bit, which is social surplus. So that sounds great, right? Then we realize how that extra social surplus is gained. Now that happens because the government is spending a huge amount of money, right? They're spending the new price multiplied by this quantity here, the difference between what consumers will buy and what producers will produce, the whole value of the shortage, surplus, the whole value of the surplus. So huge amount of spending there. So what that means is that the welfare loss is actually this huge pink area here. So it looks like a cat's head, was how it was described to me by Year 12 a couple of years ago. Looks like a cat's head. So you get this extra social surplus, but to do it, you have all this spending. So only this part of social surplus is paid for by the spending. The rest is sort of just wasted. It's a waste of government resources. Who's better off from it? Producers are only this much better off, but we're spending all this amount of money. So to help you remember the cat thing, I drew a little cat. Please don't draw a little cat in your exams. That's not going to be useful. But just in case you couldn't see the cat head shape there, maybe now you can. So problem is we get huge spending for a small little gain. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you.